Gotta make a plan, gotta do what's right. Can't run around in circles if you wanna build a life. I gotta wanna make a plan for a day far away. While I'm young and while I'm able, all I wanna do is... Look, folks, this is probably one of the most important Infowarriors I've ever done. And, you know, even the podcast doesn't do it justice. Yes, the audio stuff is great, but you're going to want the visual. So I'm hoping this is going to be big on YouTube. I'm hoping you're going to post the videos all over forums, all over message boards, saying we don't buy into this Nat Geo crap. And that's what it is. It's crap served up on a nice plate with some nice little fixins on the side, just steaming as it comes out to look like delicious mashed potatoes. Well, it ain't mashed potatoes. I'm calling crap because that's what this is. And this next point we're going to make, and we're going to start taking your calls in about 10 minutes. I'll go to them in about 10, I promise. By the way, the call line is 888-201-2244 or 512-646-1776. But I just want to throw this out there. At about an hour 39, they start putting out their own theories that they can't get other people to talk about. You see, they have to create straw men throughout this entire special so that they can paint us in a certain light. So let's go to that clip right now. And then later on, they have this running counter, a running counter of how many people would have to be involved. In other words, insinuating that somebody would have said something, that there's no way this operation could have taken place. It's called compartmentalization. It happened. It's time to grow up. All right, let's hit the clip.
In this scenario, 4 commercial passenger jets take off as scheduled. Here's a timeline of this theory. "8:30 a.m. in the alternate theory. A rogue plane painted to look like the real thing assumes the flight path of American Airlines 11, which is diverted to a secret airfield controlled by the military in Pennsylvania."
Again, no one's ever said any of this. No one ever said American 77 went down. Let's just pull it because they do it with all 4 planes. They make it up. There are rogue planes painted up like the others. Were drones used on 9/11? Very possibly. Has anyone ever said, this is how it happened? These are the air bases they went to. They landed these planes. No one's ever said any of that. It's garbage. It's bunk. It's a joke. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to point out is an hour 41:25, and where they have this running counter. Oh, it's always the counter. They always say 50,000 people, 100,000 people would have to be involved. Listen, there were multiple drills running that morning. Let me tell you how it works, okay? NORAD's sitting there doing their job. They're waiting for hijackings to occur. And they clearly state as soon as the first one happens, hey, is this part of the exercise? Is this part of the drill? And then when it's not, they start chasing other planes down. Remember, the 4 planes that were hijacked on 9/11 mysteriously did not emit hijack codes, but others did. Let's not forget about Delta 1989 that was reported to have a bomb on board. It was either Team 7 or Team 8 was the initial FBI investigation where they'll actually give you the tail numbers of, I think, 4 or 5 of the other flights that reported hijacked that day. I have Richard Myers and Everhart admitting to drills that morning and false inputs. So let's go to the counter, and they just have this rolling counter, again, prepping you to believe that there's no way that 9/11 could have been a black op. But Muslims with box cutters, that's the way to go. Let's hit it.
Innocent witnesses. This timeline accounts for many things, but like the other conspiracy theories, it has at least one major flaw. It would require a very large number of people to succeed.
For 9/11 to have been a conspiracy, we would be talking about several thousand people having to be involved. We'd be talking about people in the military, we'd be talking about people in the police, we'd be talking about people in the New York City government, people in the national government, people for the airlines, we'd be talking about relatives of some of those who were supposed to have phoned, officials at national, city and statewide, those who were responsible subsequently for intimidating other witnesses out of talking. We'd be talking about the demolition teams who were sent into the towers. We'd be talking about the people who let them into the towers in the first place, who saw them go in and decided not to give witness afterwards. thousands and thousands of people.
See, they hit 3,000 people. Let's just stop it right there, and then we're going to jump to, let's see, 143.14, where they start talking about complete fiction and how we want to believe this. And at the end, we'll wrap it up with the strong psychological component. But you see what they did there? You see how they did that? Oh, you would have to have the people who were trying to convince them. They knew about the conspiracy. Listen, people who went to other eyewitnesses and said, don't talk about this, have no idea. They just think it's compartmentalized. They don't know what that certain small part of information leads to. They don't see the bigger picture, the grander scheme. The demolition teams, let's talk about them. This building could have been pre-rigged. It had secret CIA offices in it. The government sometimes does that so that when an intelligence agency is compromised, they can detonate explosives. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly what happened. I'm saying that's a possibility. I'm also saying that it's a possibility they thought they were running a drill that day, that they were putting in explosives. They didn't even know what they were doing. This was a drill where they had to attach this to that beam and this to that beam. And the guy that pulled the trigger on these things, that eventually did have to hit some kind of button, that did take the order to bring down the towers, who knew? Who knows if he knew he was going to kill all those people or that it was real? He could have been in a room thinking he was in a simulation. So many people were that morning. At 8:45 in the morning, the National Reconnaissance Office with the CIA is running a drill of ramming a plane into a building. And at 8:46 in the morning, it actually happens. I mean, give me a break. All right, let's hit this clip right here where they just blatantly start talking about fiction and fictitious events.
I could build a conspiracy theory out of pretty much anything, you know. It's just the not knowing that bothers people, the not knowing absolutely. JFK was probably the most classic example of that. People don't want to believe it was one guy. And they don't want to believe it was one guy because they don't want to believe that in some ways one guy was able to do that, because that means that we were just inept.
Even in a fictional context, Baldacci believes that the more participants, the less likely a secret can be preserved.
I've read a lot of the conspiracy theories about 9/11 on the internet and news, all different venues. And for me, all of them are too complicated. Conspiracies are only as strong as its weakest link. If you only have
all
one
of them
thing
are
that
too
goes wrong in a
complicated.
chain.
Let's stop it right there. Let's jump to an hour and 53:30. This is the last clip of the Nat Geo. This is the grand finale, folks. We're going to take your calls. 888-201-2244. See, it turns into, an episode that's supposed to physically disprove all the 9/11 theories into a psychological expose on 9/11 truth and why they're all crazy. And that's what the point was from the beginning. You had to know it. I mean, I feel bad for Richard Gage. He saw a rough cut. He thought his information was going to be in there. He thought they were going to show the World Trade Center meteorites. He thought they were going to show the eyewitnesses to molten metal. He thought they were going to show the NASA thermal imagery. They did none of that, folks. All right, so let's wrap it up with the strong psychological component to belief systems and how, folks, I can't make this up. They say that by believing this, we're improving upon reality. Listen, I was a lot more comfortable thinking it was Muslim extremists in caves. That was an enemy I could deal with. That was somebody we could beat. But notice we're still in the Middle East and we haven't beat them yet. Weird. Let's hit it.
Asked dozens of structural engineers and scientists about what happened on 9/11, and the answer I uniformly get from credible sources is, overall, the story tends to be supported by the evidence.
They did it in order to get their wars, their oil, and in order to impose tyranny on the American people.
Some experts believe there is a strong psychological component to these belief systems.
I talked about conspiracy theories with friends of mine and acquaintances who work in the fields of psychoanalysis and psychotherapy. Not least because one of the major explanations always given is that people are paranoid. Two things came out, really. First was the desire to have a story always that is better than reality. We demand the story. It completes something in us. Conspiracy theory is an improvement upon reality. Somebody has designed the whole thing to happen exactly like that. There are no accidents. There are no contingencies.
All right, let's stop it right there. It's an improvement on reality. These people are sick. An improvement on reality. No, the reality of the situation is people like you are thumb suckers. You're little babies that want to be in the fetal position and don't want to address the real evidence, which I just presented, which makes all your garbage you just showed inept, useless, worthless, lies. All right, I promised I'd go to calls, and I'm hoping I can take some calls on this subject matter as well. 888-201-2244. If you watch this or you've been watching the program and you've got your own insight into this Nat Geo hit piece, or you want to talk about the upcoming Discovery Channel hit piece, or you want to talk about the 9/11 anniversary, let's do that now. And then later on in the show, we can hit, the latest news, the swine flu stuff, the martial law, Van Jones, and more. All right, Mark in Oregon. Mark, you're on the line.